Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Porman. At the Monroe County Commissioners meeting on June 22nd, Health Department Director Penny Cottle said that although COVID-19 transmission is high, it remains stable with a low level of hospitalizations.
We still need to be cautious, be aware that there's still a lot of virus that's circulating, but especially the vaccine is keeping people out of the hospital and not having severe disease or death.
Cottle also informed the commissioners that monkeypox is spreading, but that there are only 2 reported cases in Indiana as of June 17th.
Monkeypox is, of course, making the news. So as of June 17th, there were 113 cases reported in 20 states and Washington, D.C. 2 cases have been reported in Indiana so far. So the main thing to remember is this is still rare. We are seeing this increase, so that's where the concern is, and the risk to the general population is still low. So just want to reassure people about that, but there's lots of good information out there. The CDC website can walk through what the rash is what's most contagious, and that can be even in your mouth or on your body. So it's really close contact with somebody with those symptoms. So pay attention to what's coming with that, but know that in general, it's not something that we need to be aware of, but we don't need to be overly concerned, just cautious and aware.
During public comment, Bloomington Chamber of Commerce member Christopher M.G. thanked the commissioners for their work and highlighted specific projects the Chamber of Commerce was glad to see.
Good morning, commissioners. This is Christopher M.G. from the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. We often come before you to advocate positions, both pro and con, on a number of issues. We have a role to play as a voice of business in this public arena, and sometimes we agree and sometimes we are at odds, but that's a good thing for democracy. Today, I want to commend the commissioners on their effort and their work on behalf of Monroe County residents. On the judicial front, last December, the county was recognized as exceptional by the state for its juvenile detention alternatives initiatives. Chamber applauds the effort in reducing racial and ethnic disparities. Along the same lines, we are encouraged by the recent progress we have seen by the Criminal Justice Response Committee. Margie Rice has been an outstanding facilitator in this group. The results will go a long way in creating a new and innovative justice center. And with the new funding available, we anxiously await seeing a progressive 21st century method of incarceration with a shared goal of reducing recidivism and providing a pathway for those in our legal system to become contributing members of our community. Finally, we are pleased to see the planned limestone heritage site come together with the purchase of those 70 acres on the northwest side of the interchange of State Road 46 and I-69. This is a real opportunity to develop and mold a tourist beacon that uniquely captures our history and the entire Uplands region. I thank you for your time this morning, and thank you.
Chief Technology Director Eric Evans asked the commissioners to approve an agreement with SoftChoice for $41,370.
A couple of things about this particular deal that are nice. Number one, with this being an enterprise level deal, it's scalable. So we're starting out with 350 licenses. As we need to add more people, we can do it a la carte. We can do it in 1, we can add 2, instead of having to add groups of 100 or 500, which is how we had been structured before. So when we do exhaust the 350, which I think will be a little ways from now, we can start adding people and just pay that a la carte cost. A couple other things that are included in this enterprise level package that'll be helpful down the road. I had been working with the outgoing recorder to look at getting OCR solutions. OCR, of course, stands for optical character recognition. It's what happens when you take a scan of a document and you turn that into words that are then searchable in a database. This deal bundles in the Acrobat OCR as part of that. So maybe that'll work for the recorder's needs, but if not, we can look at getting some third-party product, but we're getting this as part of the deal. So, I figured we'd go ahead with it. The other thing that's included as part of this that they typically license separately is the PDF/A designation. That is the archival standard where they bundle the fonts along with that document, and that PDF file is meant to last a good 100 years longer than otherwise. That's included in this licensing. So it's a pretty good deal. And I hope you vote yes for it.
The commissioners approved the request unanimously. At the June 21st Monroe County Plan Commission meeting, commissioners heard a petition for a performance bond release at a property on 3110 South Leonard Springs Road. Planner Drew Myers presented the case to the commission.
This one is the SIA 21-6 Mesca Storms Minor subdivision. It's a subdivision improvement agreement. Essentially, the petitioner has applied to release the full performance bond amount that corresponds to the required construction of a cul-de-sac off of South Omaha Crossing Drive, which was part of the subdivision process. The next step is for the petitioner to apply to have the road accepted into the county inventory. The ordinance states that a 2-year maintenance bond is required after the construction has been completed to the specifications laid out in the approved construction plans. One item to note is that the petitioner would like the cul-de-sac to not be included in the county inventory and not have to post the 10% maintenance bond as well. So overall, basically the planning staff is recommending release of the performance bond with the condition that all requirements under the stormwater report must first be met. Those conditions have been met. We can see here on the screen a comment from the stormwater inspector. They performed an inspection today and determined that their comments had been addressed appropriately. If you'll note in your packet, there's several items that are required for the release or reduction of performance bonds and financial guarantee from Chapter 858-8. And you'll note that each of those items that has reference to specific exhibits in the packet that clarify that those conditions or those requirements have been met.
Commissioner Jeff McKim asked if there was any reason the commission would not want to release the performance bond. Myers responded.
Since all of the requirements of Chapter 858-8 are satisfactory, planning staff recommends releasing the performance bond of the full amount. There was some conversation with the legal department about the maintenance bond, whether or not the Plan Commission had the authority to waive that requirement. County Attorney Dave can speak more on that if he'd like to, but it was determined that they could request that it not be included in the inventory and then not have to post the 10% bond.
The commission voted 8-0 to release the performance bond back to the petitioner. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying. I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me.
Welcome back to Cats Week. At the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission meeting on June 21st, the commissioners approved a contract with Renaissance to begin the demolition of the Hopewell neighborhood. Engineering project manager Matt Smethurst informed the commission about the lowest bid for the demolition.
The Hopewell Phase 1 East demolition project will include the demolition of existing houses and buildings on the site. On June 6th, bids were opened and the city received 5 bids for the project. The lowest bid received from Bluestone Tree was an incomplete bid. It was just for the tree removal portion of the contract. And then the second lowest bid from Omega, they did not include all of the necessary bid documents in their packet. So we moved on to the third lowest bid from Renaissance. That bid was for $588,775.02, and they were the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. The demolition construction is anticipated to begin in July.
Project engineer Patrick Dierkes shared what buildings would be a part of this contract for the first phase of the demolition.
There are the two large warehouses that are IU Health's current property. There is their home at 321 West 2nd Street. So that'd be 409, 321, 313, 311, 303. So 7 residential homes, a small apartment complex that is next to Centerstone and the county's building there, and then the 2 large warehouses.
The commissioners unanimously approved the contract with Renaissance. On June 21st, at the Bloomington Board of Public Works meeting, Director of Public Works Adam Wason introduced new board member Jennifer Lloyd.
By the way, we have a new board member, Jennifer Lloyd, so thank you, Jennifer, for agreeing to serve on the Board of Public Works. And we will just keep the titles, so you'll remain President, Kyla. Jennifer will just fill in as Vice President for the rest of this term. Elizabeth will serve as Secretary for the rest of the year. And so welcome aboard, Jennifer. Thank you for reminding me, Elizabeth.
Board President Kyla Cox-Deckard introduced the resolution to remove the structure at 2607 North Walnut Street. Housing and Neighborhood Development Neighborhood Compliance Officer Mike Arnold shared the history of the staff's involvement with the property.
This is a property we did orders to seal on June 10th of 2021. We requested that all the openings that were broken windows or open doors be sealed on this structure. On July 28th, we sent a past deadline letter because we had not gotten compliance. On August 16th, we had finally did get some compliance on the order. But then you can see on October 1st, December 14th, and January 6th, when we did drive-bys, the property was out of compliance again. So we sent letters requesting compliance with the order. January 25th, we sent a request to access the property so that we could assess what it would take to actually get the structure sealed. Again, on February 15th, we sent another out of compliance letter. On March 24th, we sent the letter to the agent via email to try to get contact with the owner. And on March 29th, we received a letter signed from the owner stating that we could access the property to evaluate what we would need to do in order to seal the structure. On April 27th, we discussed with the agent the possible removal of the structure to see if they would discuss that with the owner. By June 2nd, we had not received any confirmation one way or the other, so we sent an order to remove on the structure. And the reason we did an order to remove was because as a public nuisance, we're consistently having to go out and evaluate the property and make sure it's in compliance. And at this time, we would request that the board uphold the order to remove the structure so it's no longer a nuisance.
The property owner was unable to attend in person and was represented by attorney Vince Taylor, who spoke in favor of the order to remove the structure. Taylor said that if the building is torn down, his client would lose about $1 million, but understands that it is necessary.
My name is Vince Taylor. I'm an attorney in Bloomington. Actually, I have my offices on the north side of town, so I'm familiar with this property because I drive by it all the time. There's an old Holiday Inn on North State Road 37 Business, which is the extension of Walnut Street. And my client, Prime Power, it's a corporation owned by a Chinese woman named Chow Zhao, who is now in China, and hopefully she's watching on Zoom. Mr. Wheeler was kind enough to give me the codes to get her here, so hopefully she's watching this. But anyway, so this was part of that. But as you know, there's a place called the Cascades Inn now. So a part of that area was redone as a motel. This branch had been sold to somebody else, and it was in horrible shape. And my client, I wasn't her attorney then, but my client purchased it. She had a woman named Ivy Hesea, who was a realtor in town, who helped determine that and helped her with the purchase. She, in fact, was a graduate student here at Indiana University, and that's her connection to Bloomington. And that's why she got involved in this with her father. But anyway, they bought a horrible piece of property. It was owned by a gentleman that had a number of run-ins with Han before. I wish I would have known her then, so I could have stopped her from buying this property, but I didn't. As soon as they bought the property, they tried to remove the tenants, and most of them they got out. One they couldn't, so there was a long fight, and then there was COVID, so they weren't able to get into the property to repair it because they had to remove everybody. They had plumbing that had to be redone in the parking lot. So that's a separate matter. But I have our position at this point, after having talked with Alexa, this is Alexa Knighty, who's here with me. She does management work for the property, and a lot of emails with Chow, who's in China, as I said before. We do not oppose what the city wants done. I mean, if this thing is ever going to be, she's scared half to death. She's going to lose, well, at least $1 million as a result of this purchase. But she is willing to do whatever is necessary to, first of all, secure it, because that's part of the problem. People will break into these units, and so, of course, it is a public nuisance. The neighbors don't want the homeless, and who knows, not just homeless, anybody who wants to break in a unit to do whatever.
City Attorney Chris Wheeler commented with the city's staff's preference in regards to removing the structure.
Vince and I did talk earlier today, and everything that he's stating is accurate to what we talked about in regards to what the city at least would want to see as far as good faith and substantial steps taken to have the property owner be responsible for the issues that are on her property. And that would include the type of security measures that we're seeing here espoused in the plan that's been presented, as well as then taking the steps to find an appropriate contractor. However, I would like to ask, though, for this board still to uphold the order that was issued. We will still look for that 31st of July deadline, but if we see substantial steps actually being taken in good faith towards getting this issue resolved, we would come back and ask this board for an extension of that deadline to allow the property owner to get this taken care of.
The board unanimously voted to approve the resolution to uphold the order to remove the structure. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the causes to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to Cats Week. Before approving the consent agenda at their Bloomington Utilities Service Board meeting on June 21st, Board member Jim Sims asked Director of Utilities Vic Kelson to explain why certain utilities contracts were written with, quote, not to exceed, unquote, amounts instead of having set values. Kelson explained that often the jobs can require more or less work, and having the amount set as not to exceed gives them more flexibility.
Well, so practically, if you look at this first one, we're taking the original scope of work and taking one lift station that was going to be worked on out of the contract and add a different lift station to that contract. This sort of thing can happen when you actually get into the field and begin the work. You can discover that maybe something that you thought was going to require more work requires less, or something you didn't require work at all, requires some work, and it's less effort to do to amend the contract, to do a change order, which changes the not to exceed amount, but it's more straightforward than going through the entire process again. So as long as the controller approves of it and the legal department approves of it, it's a more effective way to execute the contracts. We get the work done more quickly and efficiently.
The board also voted to approve an agreement with Overlook on 46. Utilities engineer Phil Peaton presented the contract.
This was a previously approved MOU with the developer to gain capacity within our sewer system, and we're proceeding with that. But as we were doing that, they have changed some of their design, and so they looked at, I think, some of the economics of whether they wanted 1 bedrooms with a den or 2 bedrooms, and the 2 bedrooms looked better from their standpoint, so they made a change. And so they didn't increase units, but they increased bedrooms per unit, which changes the flow capacity to the sewer, and therefore we needed to update the MOU so that we could remove that capacity out of with the I&I and the Clearwater Reduction Program to offset their flow. So we've updated the MOU, and I believe the total amount is an increase in $28,701. I would ask for the board's approval. Can answer any questions.
The board approved the contract with Overlook on 46. During public comment at the Richland Bean Blossom School Board meeting on June 20th, a concerned parent asked the board to rewrite the policy regarding attendance during finals week.
If my child needs to reschedule his finals for some reason, we have the capital and the privilege to back that up, to get those exams rescheduled. I'm not trying to sound elitist. I'm being honest about the reality of where we live in this country. Now think about the student who's from a single-parent home, free and reduced lunch, an IEP, lives in Section 8 housing, moved here from another country 6 weeks ago to escape persecution, and English is not their primary language. Does that student or family have the privilege or capital to advocate for their child for their exams to be done during a family emergency? What is the practice that's in place to support these kids? How do they know that they can reach out and get alternative testing time? Okay, last paragraph. It's my hope that you will do what's right by our children. I do not agree with the policy the way it's written, but I believe that it sets children up for failure written to reflect a zero-tolerance policy. If you decide to approve the handbook the way it's written, fine. I urge you to give the directive to the RBB administrative team to go back to their teachers to engage in real conversation about their practices, what's best for kids, and develop a plan to support all students based on their specific needs. Policies and practices must be examined. When we engage in the difficult conversations about what is best for kids, that's where the real work happens. That's the equitable thing to do to help all of our kids learn. Thank you for your time, and thanks for the extension.
Assistant Superintendent Matt Irwin asked the board to approve changes to the 2022-2023 classified handbook. Irwin explained that it is a yearly renewal and that they work with Ferguson Law to ensure the handbook is current with existing laws and board policies. Board member Brad Tucker thanked Irwin for his work on the handbook and asked him how it would be shared with the staff.
I just want to thank Mr. Irwin and the powers to be to putting that together and getting everything updated in a clean, orderly fashion, because it was kind of a little bit of a mess prior to the last 3 years. So I appreciate all the time and effort you put into that to getting it updated.
Yeah.
I assume this is all going to be communicated to the classified staff via the online portal?
Yeah, so it gets posted online and it's on our website, and then at the beginning of each year we just have them sign an acknowledgement to say, hey,
have had an opportunity to look at the handbook, and again, we post it online on the website so that they're able to look at it. Again, it just outlines all of those things that they need to know about different benefits, different policies, different procedures. In that case, hey, you're never going to remember all of that stuff right off the top of your head, and it's easy just to go back and take a look at it. Again, it did take a lot of time to put it together, and it's a lot more expansive than what the previous one was, but it obviously outlines a whole lot more than what was there, so it gives people a better outline of what the expectations are, what their benefits are, how to access that, or who to go to, and that sort of thing. So.
Board President Dana Kerr thanked Ferguson Law for their help in reviewing the handbook and other contracts on the agenda. The board approved the handbook changes unanimously. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.